Well, hi. Thanks for coming out, everybody, for our Slippery Elm 2021 release party. But there are the thank yous. Need to thank, the University of Findlay for propping up this lit mag and making us happen year after year. Thanks to President Fell for helping out with this. Thanks to Darren Fields in Academic Affairs for being here and for helping us put this on every year. And Ron Tully and Klass for helping with the magazine, and also partly sponsoring the multimedia contest. And of course, English department, and Sarah, our chair, our fearless chair, thanks, and Brenda Sheline, our admin assistant, who really, actually makes everything happen. And thanks to our student staff. I always say that this magazine is more student-run than any magazine of its scope that I know, because really everything that's in here, and this is all, this is awesome content, and this is not me picking these things out. These are our students sifting through the submissions. How many submissions do they sift through, you ask? So many, more than 1,300 last year, right? Lauren and Eden are here, who did really heavy lifting on the reading on this, so thanks, both of you, and right? So much. And thanks you all for coming out and for making lit relevant in the world, right? So what we're doing is we're recording the readings tonight, and I've asked some of our contributors who couldn't be here to send us clips. So what we're doing is we're going to release that all edited together in the next few weeks or something, and that'll be a thing. Well, I'll turn over the mic. We have some of our authors here. Kerry Trautman has a piece in this issue, and
I will try to read slowly. I know the mask makes things a little muffly. Yeah, that's okay. I don't want to contaminate anyone. Okay, so I am, if anyone's following along, I'm the last poem in the issue on page 150. I think I've been last in the past also. So I don't know if it's a, yeah, let's say that's what it is. Not just, okay, so this is called Stray. Was it cruel to have lured the stray cat these weeks closer to my fingertips to teach him petting? It was a new thing, involuntary joy on skin terms. When I had asked the older boy's sister for his number, she warned, he's sometimes not nice to girls. Fur can't help that it's reached for. The cat cries at the door now for more than just a bowl of food. The boy was patient with me, clasping my button fly. It was a new thing, him hearing, wait. It was a new thing, my being clambered upon. Small bodies should be born knowing what love feels like on skin terms. Nights are long, with only wind smoothing haunches. Is it worth it to crouch, inch forward towards the dish of a palm? Is heartbreak more or less humane than starvation? Purring is involuntary, internal. Claws are internal, except when they are externalized. If this doesn't work, he warned himself and me and unknown others, I'll go back to the way I was.
Jeff Gundy has a piece just newly up in the multimedia section.
Well, the piece that I have, which is on this on the website, is a sort of quirky thing, and I'm not going to read it all. It's too long, I think. But the title is "Of the Wind Farmer's Youth on the Way to Alpha C." I've been working on this wind farm project for quite a while, and the book's actually now in the editing stage and is, I hope, going to come out before very long. So look for it at your local supermarket or wherever such things are found. This started in class with a group of students. We'd read this great essay by Eula Biss called The Pain Scale. I don't know if anybody knows that, but she uses the 0 to 10 pain scale as a kind of frame and structure for this really kind of interesting multi-layered essay about her own struggles with pain and all sorts of other stuff. So the scale that I started with was the parsec. Everybody here know what a parsec is? Okay, I see some nods. Okay, that's good. That's good. But it goes kind of all over the place. So, but the big theme is really space and all of that. So I'll read the first couple paragraphs and maybe talk just a bit more, and then read the ending. The yellow bus rattled and banged over the gravel, and Stanley rattled on from the seat in front of me about what had happened on Lost in Space. Wednesday night was church night, so I always missed the last half of the show, but Stanley was Lutheran and could watch to the end. It seemed to take him longer to narrate the last parts than the show itself lasted, but there were many slow miles to school in no hurry. I found Stanley kind of boring, but silly as it was, I loved the show, especially the robot with its wildly waving, occasionally useful robot arms. The venal, troublesome Dr. Smith looked a lot like my Uncle Chuck, who was really my great-uncle, lived in Meadows with his mother, my great-grandma Gettinger, and never married. He grew lots of flowers and moved to Arizona after she died. Well into her 80s, I heard from my mother that he had acquired a special friend. She didn't entirely approve, but Uncle Chuck always had strawberry pop in his fridge, and when I went to college, he gave me a little plywood desk with 3 drawers on one side that he'd built himself. We still have it stashed in our smallest bedroom. Most things on the prairie were relentlessly horizontal: the bus, the fields, the roads. The Lutheran churches had tall steeples, and the grain elevators thrust upwards, but the only visible escape routes were along the rectilinear roads. No wonder I wanted to go straight up. So there's some stuff here about a novel by Robert Silverberg, which came out when I was in high school, I think, called Revolt on Alpha C. And there's a picture of the book cover. Yeah, see, there it is. Yeah. All of which is pretty sort of interesting. There's a technical explanation of the parsec, which is, for those of you who do not know, I'll give you the definition. 3.2 light years, about 19 trillion miles, or the distance to an object whose parallax angle in relation to Earth's orbit is 1 arcsecond. Okay, there will be a quiz on that later. But yeah, no, there won't. No. All right, so, and then there's some stuff about how we might travel, into space, and various methods that have been proposed. Do you know the one called nuclear pulse production or propulsion? This idea is that they would detonate nuclear bombs behind this giant pusher plate and thus, achieve great speeds through nuclear weapon. Yeah, it's a better idea than dropping them on cities, right? So anyway, all right, so there's some stuff about that. And then I'll just read you the last couple paragraphs. There are a bunch of made up or kind of semi-calculated distances about how many parsecs from here or there we are at various points, but the last section is just 0 parsecs from here and now. It took us 6 hours in those early years to drive from Bluffton to the Illinois farm. It still does, and though the best route has evolved slightly, many tedious miles on 2-lane highways are still involved. The planet has moved some minor but real fraction of a parsec through space since then. Something like 215,846,400,000 miles by my imprecise calculations. So that would be wrong by now, but no. We still cling to the surface of this singular, troubled, threatened planet, though the hypothesis that we only exist as a gigantic computer simulation seems to be gaining ground. I still dream about space, though many days I don't even get into a car, just walk from my house to my office and to class and home again. Our little blue marble carries us on in its headlong way, turns and wheels through the mostly dark and silent universe, no matter how much we argue, how much time and energy and fossil fuel we burn, taking ourselves here and there and back again, no matter how far and away we think our machines might carry us, how many ways we imagine to defy the limits of physics and leave this troubled life behind. Any day now, any day. Thank you.
So let's see. We've been publishing Slippery Elm since 2013, and Benjamin Busch is the only person who has been in every issue, and he's been a contest finalist, and I think every year. And he never won until this year. And this year he won the contest. And when I told him, he said, no, we can't do that. No, I reject that. I retract my submission. No. And I said, nope, shut up. You already signed it off. You won. And so I'm going to, since Ben can't be here and hasn't been able to send us a clip or anything, I'm going to do my rendition of his winning poem, and here's Ben's just a professional actor and voice recorder and everything, so sure, why not, right? But he does have good hair, so here's my Ben Busch impersonation. You can thanks, Ben. Trench. I'm digging a trench and I'm angry. This is the house we couldn't sell because the banks cheated. And here I am, in mud up to my knees, throwing muck stuck to my shovel, dead weight, 50 feet to go. No one cares that I have to do this to save the cost of someone else standing where I am, clothes drenched, taking their time because they're paid by the hour. This channel through the yard is also our old home will be better than we ever had it for people who would never do this. I feel a little sorry for myself, a victim of my own choices again, and I'll have to fill this in as a reward for heaving it out, seal the scar with grass like an unmarked grave. I know I'm toiling for the invisible, like so many who have dug foxholes for one night's rest, laid cable and pipe, went down the mines and came back up. And this is just to bury a new gas line, owners pacing over it for the next 50 years, never knowing where it is. My ditch is filling with water, rain smacking the ground like spit. My boots sliding, and I think of Vietnam, where I've never been, and World War I, cut like fault lines across French fields, the fallen soldiers rotting in mire, lost in it, skulls coming up like buoys, and I keep stabbing the clay, waiting to strike bones, my arms tearing at the elbows. I forget the injustice, the labor just becoming a job that needs to be done. I dig so that it will be finished, and when it is, no one will know that I threw 5 tons of soil and put them all back. That's what most work is.
Okay, hi, I'm Eden, and I'm going to be reading Alexx Matox's Rats Live Under My Bed. It's on page 41 if you have it. And I would like to dedicate this to my fiance, Dustin. Rats live under my bed. They bite at my toes and ruin my home. Claw through the walls and gnaw at my bones. As their bloated bodies float to the ceiling, I grab their hanging tails like strings tied to balloons. Hold on to those hairless extremities and carry their rotten stench and horrid screams to the kitchen. Then I drown them in the sink. Their claws scratch the blood-stained porcelain. Tails flail in every direction. Plump corpses get stuck in the drain and drift to the top of the crimson sea. Now I can get some sleep. Thank you.
I'll be reading the one right after the one Eden just read. It's called From the Throat of Crows, and it's by Erica Manto Paulson. She circled the date she would wrap her car around a tree in blue eyeliner on her wall calendar, a question mark scrawled inside the box. Everyone was talking at the funeral about how she knew her day was coming, the closed casket, and the people in her hometown who preferred to think of lesser things. Her mother recalled how she could feel the storms coming as a child, counting the miles between lightning and thunder until they shortened into rain. Summers, she plucked the exoskeletons of cicadas off the elms to peer through the spaces they left behind. Where great old barns buckle at the knees, fields receive what is left of the living into cathedrals of cirrus clouds and corn. Milkweed seeds engorged within the shell remind where we will suckle from the earth again. On that clear summer day, her body spirited through the windshield like she had broken free and came to rest. Beside the collapsing rafters of an old calving barn, her breath fluttering into the wind like a butterfly, her laughter emerging from the throat of crows.
Hi, I'm Marilee Grayson. This is called Kettle of Fish. 1. The heavy-lidded kettle cover hovers at my head, the photo frame that frames a storm. Every jacket photo poet is my father. My father was not a poet. He breathed the bottomless, dreamt in jazz, poured spontaneous across the country. These men pour from pictures, graveyard-risen, great unwritten, bottle-fisted, blue-eyed beat men. These men blow deep, these men of contours, men who speak in pictures. Painters at the Cedar once. Jack outside the West End once. My father at the half-note gong, once wrapped and kept by trumpet tolls. 2. We've awoken 6:30 to key teeth poised and catching, turning inhalation over exhalation, catching on to shadows slipping out. There is always somewhere else to sleep, from someone else to borrow. We work, we break the fast of 8 wage hours at 6:30, unbuttoned down. Cold beers in hand with heels to kick, at night we dance in cold beer puddles, cold floor skidding, cold and willing, cold hard women. We uneven pin-striped women, stripping off the vestiges we're born to bear. 3. Jack's blue eyes now drain like dust clouds, pouring puddles on the tabletop. You know what it's like inside a place like this. The fish are breathing, air too thick for swallows, birds can't fly through shuttered windows. In spilled beer puddles, we are small shoes sliding toward each other, meeting at the conversation middles. These great unwritten, good gone wild, woken women, these women, they're emasculating. Shrill peak pitches carry while a deeper voice resounds. Both arms open, standing still between the ghost men. This sleepwalk worship spills across my hands. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to read from my story, Cold Bluff, from the most recent issue of Slippery Elm. The sound of the dogs barking outside drew Will Ritter's attention away from his dinner. Through the kitchen window, he could see his 2 Rhodesian Ridgebacks, Scarlet and Boone, standing near the front of his pickup truck and barking their fool heads off. At what, Will couldn't tell. Probably just a raccoon. But as their barking grew shrill, Will got to his feet and hobbled to the front door. Knock it off, he growled from the porch. At the sound of his voice, a white horse popped its head up from behind the bed of the truck. Will locked eyes with the animal for a moment, then the horse dropped its head and resumed grazing. Boone had stopped barking once he'd seen Will, but Scarlet still let out a few low, huffing barks. Will placed a hand on her head as he passed. Easy, Scarlet, he said. Don't want to scare him off. Will slowly made his way around the side of the truck until he could see the white horse. The animal glanced at him, but didn't leave off cropping grass near the truck's back tire. He guessed the horse was at least 6 years old. A black zigzagging scar cut across his right side, likely the work of a barbed wire fence. Though the horse wore no halter or tack of any kind, Will could see the horse had been well cared for. His coat was shining, his haunches filled out, and his mane neatly pulled. The horse had a little mud on his hooves, but someone had clearly been keeping his feet trimmed. Will reached into the bed of his pickup for a rope. Living near Rocky Mountain National Park, he'd learned it was always best to be prepared. Numerous lost dogs, horses, cows, and even a pet turkey had wandered onto his property over the years. As Will approached, the white horse moved a bit to the left, but did not flee. Will held his breath as he took a few more slow steps toward the horse until he was level with his shoulder. Gently, Will eased the loop of rope over his face and down his neck. When the horse felt the rope tightening around his neck, he instinctively tried to pull back. "Easy, boy," Will soothed. "You're all right." After a moment, the horse relaxed and pricked his ears forward. Will laid a hand against the horse's snow-white neck. "Somebody's going to be looking for you." Will brought the white horse up to the barn and put him in the empty stall at the end. His other two horses, Blue and Aspen, nickered at the new arrival as Will walked to the hay barn to grab a flake of hay. He knew the Boulder County Sheriff's Office had already closed for the day, but he'd give the Cold Bluff Police Department a call when he got back to the house. After tossing the horse the flake, Will filled a wheelbarrow with shavings and started to make up the stall. He didn't know how long he'd have the white horse, so he might as well make him comfortable. The last time a lost horse had wandered onto his property, it had taken 3 days for the owners to track him down. While he worked on the stall, Will looked the horse over more closely. He appeared uninjured, which was good. While Will never wanted a horse to suffer on his watch, making medical decisions for an animal that wasn't his always made him uncomfortable. Except for the scar on his side, the horse didn't appear to have any readily identifiable markings, no hip or neck brand that he could see. Later, if the horse proved friendly enough, he'd try checking his upper lip for a tattoo. As Will smoothed out the shavings in the back of the stall, he felt something bump against his backside. He turned around to find the white horse standing behind him. The horse stretched out his head and started sniffing around the front pocket of his jeans. "I don't have any treats for you," Will said, scratching the horse behind the ear. In response, the white horse tilted his head, and Will dropped his hand to rub along the underside of the horse's face in the soft area between his jawbones. The horse sighed and half closed his eyes. "Don't worry, boy. We'll find your owner soon." When Will came out of the barn, Scarlett and Boone were lying on the gravel driveway, waiting for him. When they saw him, they got up and trailed behind him as he walked back to the house. His steak was still on the table where he'd left it. With a sigh, Will grabbed the plate and put it in the microwave. Then he picked up the new landline phone his daughter Julie had forced him to buy after his wife had died. Well, it had been 6 years, but Will still thought of it as the new phone. He called down to the police station and was surprised when he heard his old friend Bobby Pickford on the line. "I thought that when you became chief of police, you wouldn't have to answer the phone anymore," Will said. "You know, Will, I thought so too. But these young guys are always going on vacation and, well, someone's got to man the line," Bobby replied. "So what's going on?" "Had a lost horse wander onto my property just after sunset. Not one I've seen around before. Anyone called in looking?" "Not yet," Bobby said, "but let me take down the details. And make sure you call the sheriff tomorrow when they open. Let them know too." We'll spend a few more minutes with Bobby, giving him a description of the white horse and exchanging pleasantries. Bobby promised to call him back in a couple of days if no one phoned about the horse in the meantime. As Will sat down again to finally eat his dinner, he thought of his daughter Julie. She'd always wanted a white horse of her own, but Will had made her wait, promising to buy her one when she turned 13. Except by the time Julie turned 13, she lost interest in horses completely, lost interest in everything she and Will had once had in common. All she wanted to do was spend time with her friends, drive down to the mall in Boulder, and flirt with boys. He thought about calling Julie now, telling her he'd finally gotten her that white horse. It had been 18 months since he last talked to his daughter. Talked to her voicemail, actually, since Julie had never called him back. He wasn't sure the answering machine would find his joke very funny at all.
Hi, I'm Alison Hubbard, and I'm going to read an excerpt of my short story Belladonna, starting on page 75. We followed Henri outside. The yard was enclosed by high stone walls covered with lichen. Next to the convent was a portico made of columns decorated with hand-painted tiles, covered by a roof of thick, leafy vines. I smelled the sweet scent of jasmine laced with the deep aroma of earth. Songbirds flitted in and out, and squirrels chittered about. There had been a patio of terracotta tiles, but they were broken and overgrown with flowering weeds. Now and then a salamander would slither out of one crack and disappear into another, smooth as water. "Here is the garden," Henri said. We looked over the neat rows of peppers, tomatoes, and eggplants. "Where are the belladonnas?" Ludi said. "Voila." Henri pointed to some purple trumpet-shaped flowers with long yellow stigmas. Ludi reached for one of the black berries, but Henri stayed his hand. "Do not touch those, little man. The leaves and berries are deadly poisonous. I mean it." "Where are the dead nuns?" Ludi said. Henri took us to a corner of the yard where there were stone caskets with names and crosses carved on them. Patches of belladonna grew between the graves. That afternoon we practiced in the cathedral while sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows. But the Brahms had lost some of its mystery in the light of day, and the gaps from Papa's missing violin part were obvious to everyone except Henri, who stared at Mama with adoration and something even stronger, possessiveness. That night I heard more footsteps, moans, and groans. In the morning, Mama helped Henri with breakfast again. When we practiced the Brahms, Ludi broke a string. Normally, Papa would pull one out of his violin case, but of course that wasn't going to happen. Henri offered to take Ludi to a music shop in Palermo, while Mama and I cooked spaghetti sauce. At first, Mama was reluctant to let Henri take Ludi. She could be quite overprotective. But I overheard Henri say, "You should get used to me, eh, Marie?" As soon as the Citroën pulled away from the gate, I turned to Mama, who was slicing garlic while I chopped an onion. "Mama, are you planning to leave Papa for good?" "Of course not." She tossed the garlic and onion into a pot, where they landed with a sizzle, then added a bowl of chopped tomatoes. "Well, Henri seems to think you are," I said. I expected her to get angry, but she lowered the flame and sat down at the table. I sat next to her. She wiped her forehead with the back of her hand. "I didn't think he would take it so seriously, Marion. He's European and he's a man. But his wife died a few years ago and he always wanted children. He thinks God answered his prayers." She took my hands and looked into my eyes beseechingly. "What should I do, Marion?" I was a skinny 12-year-old with short, dark hair and glasses, trying to be my mother's oracle. "Tell him the truth, Mama. You need more time. You've been married to Papa for 15 years. Tell him we'll go home for the concert and you'll think about it." "All right." She looked relieved. "I'll tell him tonight." She kissed my forehead, then pulled me to her and held me so tightly it hurt. In a few hours, Henri and Ludi returned with violin strings and also a game called Tetris Papa had promised to buy Ludi for Christmas. "Did you say thank you?" Mama said. Ludi didn't look up from his game. "Thank you," he said flatly. That night there was a row upstairs. I heard slamming doors, shouting, then Henri's plaintive voice. "Don't leave me, Maria. I love you. You said." "I know, Henri. I'm sorry," Mama said. "I just need more time." Now the guttural sound of a man weeping. "Come, let me hold you, my chérie." And Mama's voice. "I can't tonight, Henri. Maybe tomorrow." A door shut and latched firmly. The next morning I woke at dawn when Mama sat down on my bed. Her eyes were enormous. "Marion, we must pack our bags and leave at once. Tell Ludi." We sneaked our bags into the hallway and I went outside to open the gate. It was locked, bolted shut. I rattled it, but it was as secure as a prison. I made a circuit around the property. The walls were too high to climb and there were no gaps. Thank you.
My name is Mariano Zaro, and this is my short story, Candied Almonds on My Way to Rome for Slippery Elm. Candied almonds on my way to Rome. My Aunt Alba invites me to her house for tea. Come through the back door, she always says. She doesn't serve tea. She serves liqueur that she prepares in a decanter with cherries, cinnamon sticks, and carnation petals. The carnations are just for color. She's in her 70s. I am 12 or 13. My aunt fills the glasses to the very top. Take your time when you drink, she says. She is married to Emilio. My Aunt Alba is 25 years older than her husband. We drink from little thimbles of fine crystal with my aunt's initials engraved in the center. The liqueur is the color of garnets. She also serves candied almonds and chocolate-covered hazelnuts. When they got married, my Uncle Emilio was 26, she was 51. He was a widower and had 2 children under the age of 3. The liqueur echoes on your palate like body heat in your bed after you get up. My Uncle Emilio comes to the living room. He is tall, wears sunglasses. He rolls the sleeves of his shirt. He has thick veins in his forearms. I want to feel his veins on the palm of my hand. The wedding was quiet, secretive. People did not approve of the relationship. They were married in a small chapel at 6 in the morning. My father and 2 other men sign as witnesses. My aunt drinks slowly. She has long fingers. She asks questions. Her questions make me feel older. They are from a place where I have not been. My uncle rests his hands on my shoulders. Come back soon, he says. The liqueur makes me sweat. I rest my head on the couch. You can take a nap if you want, he says. I drink a little more. He leaves the room. My aunt shows me an old picture. This is a picture of our honeymoon, she says. We went to Rome. Her hand holds the picture as you hold a live butterfly. Is this the only picture? I ask. Yes, it is, she says. But I remember everything, things I cannot tell you. She looks calm in the picture, wears a thin coat with a belt made of the same fabric tied at the front. Emilio is next to her. They look alike, like brother and sister. Now she looks old, much older than him. I think she knows. That's why she doesn't go out very often. That's why she uses the back door. You will go to Rome one day, she tells me. She gives me some candied almonds. I leave the house through the garden. It has a large empty table where I sit for a moment. I eat the almonds, rub my forearms against each other. I am drunk on sugar, liqueur, and honeymoons. I cannot wait to go to Rome. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Sorry to miss the party, but I guess I'm trying to show up here. Thanks, Dave, and everybody at Slippery Elm for letting me be a part of this issue. Here's my poem. I'll try to do a decent read of it. It's called Study by Window Light, page 82. I won't say beauty. so you won't think I mean the last of your youth. I don't need to see some peachy face beaming original trust, peepers blinking up at a cloud puff creature parade. I don't much like that dusky tarnish brushed on over eyes to emphasize innocence with a bruised look. If ever I wished to rescue, harbor, or transport a poor pseudo-you, I don't now. I do need those lines, years facing the light of drawn from your eyes' corners. I need the blue veins tint on your temples' plains, and to settle my shreds in the gullies east and west of your brave, complicated lips. There's respite in the long creases, time and motherings given your breasts. Here's a land where the air is alive with listening. Your traveled hand rests on this wanderer's wind-burned hide. Here's a sky whose cumuli come down around me like knowing limbs, a voice like yours in the vapor, an understanding closer than speech. I won't say beauty, unless we can reclaim the contraband held in that name. Steal it from the gloss cases of the magazine pages. Set the actual free from where the words been lashed with millions of miles of eyeliner down to the skin and bone runway flash behind the screens. Beauty as broken code, the harnessing of so much human need to be seen. I won't say beauty till we've brought it home to our kitchen stove, table, our weeks-old rose petals like little red lifeboats left adrift near the salt. In evidence, gravity's excellent work on your bent shoulders and my paunch. This raggedy nurture we manage, leaning together into our undoing. This dim winter day, cold by the window, you huddle wrapped in the woolen throw. The light infuses frayed strands of your hair, matching the soft sheen of the naked alder out there. Your cheeks a mottled field of purples and earths, its furrows a text to erode unread. I won't say beauty, but touch what'll go unsaid. Thank you.
Hi, y'all. My name is Allyn Bernkopf. I am a PhD student here at Oklahoma State University. I just wanted to say thanks to Slippery Elm Literary Journal for giving my poem a home with this beautiful collection. And I am so thrilled to be published alongside of all of these other beautiful voices in this collection. So I'll go ahead and read my poem. It is called Painted Ladies. 1. One time I caught a painted lady. I was 8, so I pinched her wings between my thumb and forefinger, watched her legs run in midair. Her antennae silently switched back and forth. Dad's car started, and I sat mesmerized. The colors in her wings vibrated as the queasy engine left. I ran my thumb along her tips and marveled how soft and delicate she was. I closed my eyes to make sure I remembered every detail of her opulence. 2. I worked foundation into pores, smearing skin in light beige, highlights, whitened forehead, cheekbones, nose, and chin, blending away imperfections. I carved my eyes in blackest of black, create cat eye corners to enlarge the effect, brush lids in colors of nude, and apply a scintillating holographic blush. Line lips, Revlon 45, naughty plum. I lace my black stilettos around my feet and leave. 3. Mom calls from inside the house. Tears tarnished her pale skin. I observed how my lady fluttered. As delicate as she, I placed her in my mouth and swallowed. She shivered as she went down, and so did I. I knew she would always be safe with me. Thank you again.
Hi Slippery Elm, thank you so much for including my poem. I'm Kaye Spivey and this is The Movement. I am a crepe paper promise, a moth in resin residing deftly over words, stacked and ready for hands, ready and silent and waiting for a spark to catch and alight, announcing to the world these words are useless. We're not ready for them. Or we're too ready, but too thin to hold something heavy, something sharp enough to break the branch that was stripped and sawed and made the page. The whole atmosphere is burning, dancing, fire-burning paper. Let's turn the screen off. I am a thin paper craft, and I catch easily. Keep me safe and let the memory linger. Catch me in the wind before the sparks rise. Hold me tight against a bleeding chest to clot the wound, or let me catch the current and rise with it like ashes, dust to sky. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Allyn Bernkopf. I was recently published in the Slippery Elm Literary Journal in their 2021 edition. And so I thought for the release party, I would just read a couple pages from my story. So here it is. It's called Casa Bruja. It is strongly influenced by authors like Isabel Allende, and I really appreciate Slippery Elm for publishing this story. I'm very proud of it, and I really loved writing it. So thank you so much. So Casa Bruja by Hannah L. Bercovici. Teresa Blanca became a witch 33 hours after she was bitten by one. No one can really blame Teresa or anyone else for what happened. The witch who bit her had been disguised as a rat, and the change was too gradual for her or anyone else to notice. Perhaps, though, we can blame her and everyone else a little bit. The town was called Casa Bruja, for God's sake. Teresa had been raised on stories of witches and how to spot them. Her grandfather, the doctor, would place her on his knee and tell her from his wrinkled lips stories of his hunts for the wicked creatures. The number one thing to look out for, he said, was unassuming animals. Everyone knew the animals in Casa Bruja were always assuming, except for, of course, the animals disguised as witches. To be fair, Teresa did not know how unassuming animals looked because she had grown up surrounded by assuming ones. As the first unassuming animal she ran into was a witch looking for food, and hunger can often be mistaken for assumption, Teresa did not have much of a chance. Plus, she thought witches were extinct if they existed even at all. So, despite the many warnings, Teresa thought nothing of the rat perched on the bed beside her with a desperate look on its face. The rat stared at her with beady black eyes and matted fur. It looked so pitiful that Teresa offered it a piece of tortilla. Unfortunately, her finger got caught in the exchange. Its eyes filled with guilt. The rat fled, diving out the window. Teresa wrapped the bite with gauze from her side table and promptly forgot about the encounter. Early the next morning, she woke up sweaty. Her nightshirt stuck to her like a membrane. She ripped off her clothes and went back to sleep, unaware that she had pulled off some of her own skin. A few hours later, she got up. Teresa felt as if a woodworker had brushed over her skin with the finest sandpaper in the world. Despite the strange sensation, she decided to run. Running always helped her get rid of unexplained sensations. She pulled on her running clothes, tied her laces, and scurried out the door. As she sprinted down her parents' street, her hands swung like an Olympic runner's. An irresistible pull swept over her body, calling her toward the forest. This was not common practice for Teresa, for she usually preferred slowly running in alleys and peering into the backyards of sleeping neighbors. However, the urge to be in the woods did happen occasionally, so she decided not to resist it. The treetops loomed over her as she ran down the hiking trail. She dodged roots and rocks, gaining speed until it felt like she was flying. She attributed this feeling to a runner's high. In fact, her feet were literally not touching the ground. She was levitating by about 3 millimeters. She floated in loops around the trail, screaming past men walking their dogs and women walking their men. No one thought much of the woman running by, though they waved back when she waved. They were too absorbed in their own dramas to notice anything different about the normally predictable Teresa Blanca. Only one child saw that she was floating, but as he was often accused of making up tales, he kept silent about the whole affair. Thank you again for publishing my story, and thank you all for taking the time to come to this release party. And I look forward to seeing all of you and hearing all the authors read their different stories and poetry. Thanks, bye.
Hi, my name is Erik Klass, and this is an excerpt from my short story, The New City. Thank you, Slippery Elm, for including it in the journal. I appreciate it. I don't think I need any context, so I'm just going to jump right in. The new city was a flux of languages and memories. The languages unfolded into the atmosphere in the form of speech, bursting forth in words and letters and syntax, dissipating, yes, dying, but still vibrating, and in their being heard and sometimes seen, more real than air. Simple words like hunger and sleep and blindness, more difficult words like lustio fulvis and imprevedibility and papismic. And the language beyond language, rhythm, pitch, gestures, sighs, silences. The memories, on the other hand, did not unfold and were not seen and were rarely heard and frankly were barely understood. While speech exists within a stretch of time, each memory, each moment of its being, like language, represents a synchronic instant, a storehouse, a potentiality, a seed. The people held their memories, these multifarious points of time, within their bodies and minds, as if they were of immeasurable value, like religious relics, or shiny stones taken from the sea, the unimaginable sea, on coastal excursions to Gdansk in those long-gone days before they came to the new city. And then there were the sacred books, which seemed to be some combination of language and memory, and which too could be unfolded, literally, figuratively, like speech. She had come to understand that according to the laws and beliefs of the people of the new city, the sacred books could not be burned or otherwise desecrated. So when the people left the city, as they did on some days by the hundreds, they would leave behind these books, which would be collected by the preservers of such miscellanea and delivered to the city's library, where the director, an old man who still, in a show of daring subversion, kept a beard, a man called Engineer Weinhorn, would file them away in all their multitudinousness, along with many other books of a more secular nature, in a system that was not entirely apparent to the library's visitors, but seemed to work just fine for the director. Thousands of books of all colors and sizes. Winter snow came early, a terrible, wet snow that turned black when it hit the ground. She walked in others' footprints. When she entered, the director rose immediately, waving pipe smoke around with his left hand. "Here is something for you," he said, placing his pipe on its stand and reaching into his desk for a thick book with a white felt cover the color of curdled milk. "This is a difficult book," he said. "No one is able to read it. It is in Czech." He handed her the book, which she accepted with both hands. The director continued, "As far as I can tell, it is a translation of a book in English, itself a translation of a book of Greco-Roman mythology. A story of a long journey," he said, "perhaps a journey home. But it is a strange book, and even our Czech readers can't, as the Romans say, make heads or feet of it." She opened the book at random and began to silently read the first words she saw. "Thought is the thought of thought, tranquil brightness." She closed the book, wiped the cover with her hand, blew away the dust. When she left the library, leaving the old man standing at his desk, the snow had turned to a cold, light rain, and to protect the book, she put it under her coat and held it there carefully with her left arm. It was nearly 8. The streetlights, which shone like pale crosses through the rain, would be extinguished soon, and the window curtains would be pulled so tightly shut that not even a sliver of light would slip out into the night. after 8 in the new city, the darkness would be entire. The truth is that some of the people desecrated the books. The books were burnt in stoves, or the people tore the pages from their bindings and used them to clean themselves, or to write words of no importance whatsoever. Some of the people used the one folio leaves of the larger books as cigarette papers. They'd smoke these cigarettes with cheap tobacco and slip and slide down the ice-covered streets, the sacred words turning to ash and blowing away quickly over their heads. She knew this was not a good omen for the people of the new city. She knew the people were in trouble when they would destroy their own words. This was forgetting. This was the destruction of the past. This was the antithesis of memory. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Susanna Lang, and I'm really honored to be part of this year's issue of Slippery Elm. Here's my poem, At the Bird Sanctuary. A man with a baseball cap and a gap between his front teeth thinks he can speak bird, but when he calls, the sparrows stop singing. White-throated, white-crowned, lichens, chipping, junco, vesper, lark, clay-covered, savannah, fox sparrow, half-hidden shapes among leaves that curl and crumble toward their fall. Come spring, these trees will recall a few notes at first, then more. The returning birds will take their turn. Even we, dumb beasts, might feel the stirrings of something we have mostly forgotten. Even this man could learn a word or two of the language he is only pretending to speak now. Thank you.